to go to the seaside today," shouted Daddy Pig. "Me," said Peppa. "And me," said George. "I've packed the barbecue in the camper van," said Daddy Pig. Mummy Pig came out of the house with a hamper of food. "Let's go," shouted Peppa. They all climbed into the camper van and off they went. Eventually, they arrived at the seaside. "This seems like a good place," said Daddy Pig. Peppa ran straight down to the sea, while Mummy and Daddy Pig got the barbecue out. George tried putting up the picnic table, but needed a bit of help from Peppa. Daddy Pig unfurled the awning on the camper van to give them a bit of shade. "That's better," said Mummy Pig. "Can we go into the sea now?" said Peppa. They all got changed and ran down to the sea. "Stay close to the shore," said Mummy Pig, and they all waded into the sea. They started splashing each other, having a really fun time. "Where's George?" said Mummy suddenly. They looked around but couldn't see him. "There he is," said Mummy, and they saw George out on the small island. "I told you not to wander off," said Mummy. "It's not very deep," said George. "I walked over, but I'm a bit tired now." Just then they heard a train coming. It stopped by the beach. "It's Dora the Explorer," said Peppa. Dora got off the train. "Is everything all right?" said Dora. "Well, George is on that island, and although the water's not very deep, it's a bit cold," said Mummy Pig. "Don't worry," said Dora. "I was going to have a row in my boat anyway. I'll fetch him back." Daddy Pig told George to wait for Dora. They all helped Dora into the water with her boat, and she rowed across to the island. George jumped in and Dora rowed back. George got out and said sorry to everyone. "I won't wander off again," he said. "It's a bit dangerous, isn't it?" "Thanks, Dora," said Daddy Pig. "Will you join us for something to eat?" "I'd love to," she said. While Peppa and George had a shower, Mummy and Daddy Pig started the barbecue. They all gathered around ready to eat the food and agreed that it had been a really great day despite George's little adventure.
Today, Peppa and George are going on a picnic. "Hold on guys," said Thomas. "I just need to refill my water tank. Won't be long." I think George is more interested in that boat than he is the picnic. Oh no, he's drifting into the middle of the lake. And the paddles are still on the land. "Help! I'm stuck!" cried George. "Don't worry," said Thomas. "I know who can help us." Ah, the minions. They're always full of bright ideas. A log. Not a bad idea.
Nope. Uh-oh, run! Run! Phew. Aha.
Ah, rope. You can pull the boat in.
Woo.
Oh, or maybe not.
Aha.
Yes, another boat. Good, great idea. Oh no,
What?
it's sinking.
Uh-oh. Oh no. Ah, run! Run!
Only one idea left. Let's hope it works. Ah, a pirate minion. Perfect. Oh, well done. Oh, George, you are naughty, but at least you're safe now. Oh, I think the minions wanted to lift too.
Wait! Slow down!
George loved his new music player he got for Christmas. He was always dancing to his very loud music. George, would you please turn down the music? It's giving me a headache, shouted Mummy Pig. OK, sure, said George as he carried on dancing. It wasn't just Mummy Pig that was getting annoyed with the music, but everyone in the village. His music was so loud he couldn't hear the angry crowd outside his house. They even knocked on his door, but he still couldn't hear them. Right, something needs to be done, said Queen Elsa. He needs to learn a lesson. Let's call in the superheroes. They'll know what to do. Soon, the superheroes arrived at the house. We have a plan, they said. How about we move his house to teach him a lesson? So Iron Man got ready to lift the house. What's happening? Cried a panicking George, quickly turning off his music. And soon the house was sinking underwater. Then all of a sudden Iron Man appeared. George, do you know why we have done this? It's because everyone in the village is annoyed with your loud music. So we moved your house away. Just because you like your music loud doesn't mean everyone else likes it. Do you understand? I do. I will never play music loud again, said George. George, it's all right to play loud music, but only for a short time. Otherwise people will get annoyed. Have you learnt your lesson? Yes, I have. That's good, said Iron Man. And with that, the house was moved back to the village and everything returned to the way it used to be.
Who wants to get some pumpkins for the party? Asked Daddy Pig. Me, shouted Peppa. And me, agreed George. I'll just get the camper van ready, replied Daddy Pig. We'll need more room for all the pumpkins. And off he went. Daddy Pig drove the camper van up to the house and Peppa and George jumped in. Don't be too long, said Mummy Pig. We still need to decorate the house. We'll be quick, they all shouted, and off they went. It didn't take too long to reach the pumpkin patch, and Peppa and George hopped out eagerly. Wow, exclaimed Peppa, look at all those pumpkins. You pick them and I'll load them into the van, replied Daddy Pig, and so Peppa and George got to work. Careful, George, cried Peppa. But it was too late. George had fallen into a rotten pumpkin and got it stuck on his head. Peppa helped to pull it off and they continued. Well done, said Daddy Pig. I think we have enough now. Let's go home. So they all climbed into the van. But when Daddy Pig tried to start the engine, it made a terrible noise. He got out to take a closer look. I'm afraid the motor needs fixing, Daddy sighed. And Grandpa Dog is a bit tied up at the moment. We'll just have to wait for him. But we need to get home to help Mummy decorate the house, cried Peppa. But just then they heard a familiar whistle. It's Thomas, shouted Peppa. Thomas stopped. Oh dear, are you stuck? He asked. Yes, replied Peppa. We need to get our pumpkins home. No problem, he replied. You can pop them in my empty truck and I'll give you a lift. Oh, thank you, smiled Daddy Pig. And they unloaded all the pumpkins into Thomas's truck. You two go with Thomas and I'll wait for Grandpa Dog, said Daddy Pig. So Peppa and George hopped into Thomas's truck. See you later, shouted Daddy Pig, and they waved. They were nearly home when disaster struck. A log slipped off a pile of wood and fell under the pumpkin truck. The truck derailed, spilling the pumpkins all over the road. Oh no, cried Peppa. What are we going to do? The truck is too heavy for us to put back on the rails. Don't worry, replied Thomas. Jack is on his way and he'll help us. Sure enough, Jack appeared. Peppa and George moved the log away from the track and Jack began to heave Thomas's truck back onto the rails. He also managed to scoop all the pumpkins up and put them back into the truck. Thanks, Jack, said Thomas gratefully. No problem, said Jack, and off he went. Peppa and George climbed back into Thomas's truck and they continued their journey. Mummy Pig was relieved to see them when they arrived and they unloaded all the pumpkins. Mummy Pig then thanked Thomas for his help. "You're very welcome," he replied, and disappeared. Luckily, Grandpa Dog had fixed the camper van and Daddy Pig could drive home while Mummy, Peppa and George decorated the house. "Wow," he cried, "the house looks amazing! Well done, everyone. We've just got enough time to get changed before the party." "Good morning, everybody," shouted Peppa. It was another school day with their teacher, Madame Gazelle. Peppa loved school. They were waiting for their friends, Zoe and Pedro, who they went to school with. When they arrived, Mummy Pig said goodbye and they started their short walk to school. On the other side of town, at the Ponyville schoolhouse, the teacher, Cheerily, was preparing her classroom for the day's lessons. But today was going to be very different from a usual day. Peppa and her friends arrived at the school, but it was closed. Miss Rabbit then appeared and told the children that their teacher, Madame Gazelle, wasn't feeling very well, and today they were going to be taught at the Ponyville schoolhouse by Cheerily. Miss Rabbit then gave all the children an apple to take with them. She heard that Cheerily liked apples. James arrived to take Peppa, her friends and their apples on the journey across town. Arrived, they said hello to Cheerily and then went to sit down. They all gave Cheerily an apple, except George, who said that he was sorry, but he'd lost his apple. Actually, George ate it as they were getting off the train. He'd felt hungry. Cheerily began her lesson. After a while, it was time for a break, and they went straight to the slide and swing, although they were all a little bit too big for the swing, except George. Cheerily had a lovely meal of apples. Break over, and they sat down again for more lessons. Then school had finished. They all thanked Cheerily for teaching them, and George confessed that he hadn't lost his apple. He'd actually felt quite hungry and eaten it. "Don't worry," said Cheerily, "I had 3 apples and I feel quite full." James left for the trip across town and dropped them off at the playground by Peppa's house. They'd all had a great day, but wanted a quick play before returning to their homes.
Once upon a time, there was a young boy called George. George lived on a small farm with his mother, and they were very, very poor. One day, things got so bad that they could not afford a dinner. "George, I'm afraid we'll have to sell our cow," said George's mother. go to the market and sell them for no less than 5 gold coins. So George left the farm to find a buyer. On the way, George bumped into someone. "Are you selling your cow?" the stranger asked. "I'll swap it for these magic beans." "I'm sorry, I can only sell this cow for 5 gold coins." "Oh, these beans are worth a lot more than 5 gold coins," said the stranger. And after a lot of convincing, George swapped the cow for the magic beans. When George got home, he showed his mother the magic beans. "George, how can we eat dinner with magic beans? I said no less than 5 gold coins." And with that, she threw the beans out of the window and sent George straight to bed with no dinner. The next morning, George woke up and noticed a very large plant outside. He rushed out and saw a massive beanstalk. The beanstalk went right up to the clouds. Excitedly, George began to climb. When he reached the clouds, he noticed a large castle fit for a giant. But giants were not living in the castle. It was "What brings you up here, young boy?" asked the wizard. "I tried to sell my cow to buy some dinner, but I found my way up here instead." "So you live on a farm?" "Yes, I do, but it's not a very big farm." "Well, I'm sure we can help make your farm the best in the world." So George and the minions left the castle, climbed down the beanstalk, and began work on the farm.
Da da da. Da da da. Ooh. Uh-oh. Move, 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 move. Grr. Uh-oh. Ah! Move, 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 move. Oh? What? Right.
Soon, the farm not only had lots more animals, but Thomas delivered 2 whole trucks of fruit to the market every day. The farm was so successful that George, his mother, and the minions all became very rich, and everyone lived happily ever after.
It was snowing at the Paw Patrol lookout. Ryder looked down at the Paw Patroller covered in snow. "Oh, I hope we don't get any calls today." On the other side of town, Peppa and George ran outside. "Snow!" they said. "Hooray, hooray!" Mummy Pig told them they could play, but not to go too far. Candy Cat turned up to play with Peppa as George wandered off. Candy and Peppa rolled around in the snow. At the lookout, Chase and Marshall were playing in the snow as well, building a snowman. Ryder and Rubble kept watch. Meanwhile, George was climbing a snowy hill. "Ooh, careful, George." George has always wanted to go snowboarding, but he doesn't have a snowboard. He's just pulled one of Mummy Pig's best trays out from under his jumper. "No, George, don't even think about it." But George didn't think. He jumped on the tray and actually started quite well. "Oh, watch out, George!" Too late. George landed at the top of a tree. At the lookout, George's accident had been seen and the alarm raised. "I'll try and get Everest on her pup tag," said Ryder. Everest was enjoying the snow, but when Ryder called, she knew there was an emergency. She immediately jumped into her snowplow and set off to find George. "Ah, there you are, George." "I'll just get my ladder out." George got down slowly and was relieved to be on the ground again. "I think you need a proper snowboard and some lessons, George," said Everest. "Come on, I'll take you home." Mummy Pig was wondering where George had gone and was very pleased to see him. "Here you are," said Everest, "and this is your tray, Mummy Pig." "So that's where it is," said Mummy Pig. "Can I have a ride in your snowplow?" said Peppa. "Of course," said Everest, who gave Peppa a ride. Then Candy had a go. Everybody thanked Everest, and off she went.
Once upon a time, Prince George arrived home after a day of exploring. "Hello, dear," said Mummy Pig. "How was your day?" "It was fantastic," he replied. "And look what I found." And he can fly too, so he demonstrated. "So, Mummy, can I keep him?" "Sorry, George. He's far too dangerous to keep. Take him back to somewhere safe." So a sulking George flew the dragon away. He didn't want to lose his dragon, so he hid it nearby. "Nobody knows you're here, so you've got to be quiet and behave, and if you hear me whistle, come right away. Understand?" The dragon nodded and George went home. Unfortunately, the dragon had other ideas. Peppa then arrived home and noticed the burnt truck. "There's a burnt truck out here," she said. "Do you know anything about it?" "Uh-oh," said George, and he whistled. "I told you to get rid of the dragon, George," said Mummy Pig. "Don't worry, I will this time," he replied. "You could take him to Dragon Island," suggested Peppa. Everyone thought this was a good idea. The dragon was really happy there. Suddenly, George woke up. It had all just been a dream, he thought. Or had it?
George had been playing in the garden and he was just going back into the house when he heard a noise behind him. He turned round but saw nothing. "Oh well," he thought and carried on. There it was again! Something is following him, but he couldn't see what it was. This time he turned round really quickly and he could see it. The creature flapped its flippers at George. "Hello, little fella. Are you lost?" asked George. "I think you better come home with me." And the two of them made their way to George's house. Peppa heard George coming and went outside. "What's that?" she cried, astonished. "It's my new friend," replied George. Just then, Mummy and Daddy Pig came out to see what was going on. "Is it a tortoise?" asked Peppa to Mummy Pig. "No, Peppa, it's a turtle, and it must be very lost. It needs some water to swim in." "I've got a great idea," said Daddy Pig, and he went off to build a swimming pool. While Daddy was busy constructing the pool, Peppa and George watched the turtle. "He's so cute," said Peppa. "There," said Daddy Pig. "Now to add the seawater." "What shall we call him?" asked Peppa to George. "Crush," answered George, after Crush in Finding Nemo. "Great idea," smiled Peppa. Daddy Pig filled the pool with the water. "That will do," he smiled. Peppa looked into the pool. "It's a bit bare," she said, "and how can he get out of the water?" I've got another idea," smiled Daddy Pig, and he went to make a phone call. Very soon, Chomper arrived carrying an enormous rock. He placed it into the water. "Thanks, Chomper," said Mummy Pig. "The pool looks great now." "You're welcome," replied Chomper, and off he went. "Let's get Crush into his new home," said Daddy Pig, and he carefully eased Crush onto the rock. Crush slid into the water and began to swim around. think he loves his new home, smiled Peppa. The next day, Peppa woke up early and went outside to see Crush. But Crush did not look very happy at all. Daddy Pig came outside. "Oh dear, Peppa, I think Crush is missing his friends," he said. "I think we'll have to take him back to the sea where he belongs." So Daddy Pig went to get the camper van. Peppa and George were very sad, but they knew it was the right thing to do. They all got into the camper van and off they went. Eventually, they arrived at the sea. Mummy and Daddy Pig got out first, followed by Peppa, George and Crush. Crush was very excited when he saw the sea. "Look, Mummy," said Peppa, "I can see Crush's friend on the rocks. I think he's looking for Crush." As Crush got into the water, he gave a little wave to Peppa and George, and then off he went to join his friend. They were delighted to see each other again, and in a blink of an eye they dived down deep into the sea. Thanks for watching our story, which used the Robo Turtle set from Zuru. It comes with a plastic collapsible tank, a rock formation and a Robo Turtle. The turtle walks on land by gently touching its back and also swims in water. We use an additional turtle to make our story. There are 4 to collect in the set. We really like these turtles, as they're extremely lifelike and great for stories.
"Who wants to go for a picnic?" shouted Daddy Pig. "Me," said Peppa. "And me," said George. "I thought you might say yes," said Daddy Pig. "The camper van is packed and ready to go." "I'll just lock up," said Mummy Pig, and she went in the house while Daddy got Peppa and George in the van. All ready, off they went. "Are we there yet?" said George. "George, we've only just left the house," said Daddy Pig. Actually, it didn't take them long to get to their favourite picnic spot. Peppa and George rushed down to the lake to see if they could see any jumping fish. "I saw one," said Peppa, and they rushed back to tell Mummy and Daddy had started getting the picnic table out. "Food will be ready soon," said Daddy, "so don't go too far." They ran off towards the lake again. Peppa watched the lake carefully, and this time 2 fish jumped out. "Picnic's ready," shouted Daddy. Peppa ran back. She was hungry. "Where's George?" said Mummy. They all looked around for him. "There he is," said Peppa. George was at the top of a tree. "George, come down," shouted Daddy. "I can't," said George. "I'm stuck." A little distance away, a periscope was scanning the area and fixed its gaze on George. "There's a pig in trouble," said Ryder. "Seems to be stuck up a tree." This was the Paw Patrol lookout, always on standby to carry out a rescue. Marshall, this one's for you and your ladder." Marshall slid down the chute and got into his fire truck. He sped towards the picnic spot. It didn't take him long to arrive. "Marshall here to help," said Marshall. "Thank you," said Daddy Pig. "George is stuck." "Don't worry, I'll soon have him down," said Marshall. He got his truck in position and started raising the ladder. George was now able to reach the ladder and, relieved, managed to climb down. "Thank you," said George. "I won't climb trees again." Daddy Pig thanked Marshall. He told him they were just about to eat and would he like to join them. He agreed and they sat around the table. Mummy Pig had found a big juicy bone for Marshall.